A worldwide search is underway for the Colombian drug barons. President Bush praises Colombia's president for his crackdown on the drug trade. And in the Soviet Baltics, hundreds of thousands of people join hands to demonstrate for independence.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Tom Brokaw is off tonight. I'm Mary Alice Williams. As the net tightens around the Colombian drug barons, U.S. embassies worldwide are on alert for the dirty dozen, the top 12 drug cartel kingpins who may be fleeing Colombia's crackdown. And NBC News has learned the Colombian Attorney General will be in Washington within 48 hours for talks with the U.S. Attorney General on extraditing them. NBC's Brian Ross has learned the drug lords have some major advantages. A former Israeli intelligence officer has been working in Colombia on their side.
For years, this man, Michael Harari, ran an Israeli assassination team that hunted down Arab terrorists. For the last 10 years, Harari has been in and out of Latin America, first as head of Israeli intelligence in the region, and most recently as a security and weapons expert, no longer working for Israel, but for General Noriega of Panama. Now, here in Bogota, there are reports that Harari has been active in Colombia, and both Colombian and American authorities are investigating whether Harari and other Israelis are involved in training and equipping assassination teams organized by the drug cartel bosses. As NBC News reported earlier this week, a videotape made by the drug bosses themselves of assassins in training shows that people who are not Colombians are doing the training. Colombian authorities have identified some of the trainers as Israeli and South African mercenaries. Earlier this summer in Florida, a huge shipment of automatic weapons and explosives was intercepted by American authorities, who said the shipment was going to drug bosses in Colombia. 3 people were arrested, 2 Colombians and an Israeli, who authorities identified as the arms broker for the cocaine cartel. U.S. Customs Agent Dennis Fagan.
They're not using slingshots, so therefore, they're using some heavy armament. So they are military weapons.
In Israel today, a foreign ministry spokesman said the government was investigating.
It is clear that if there is any involvement, this is an involvement of individuals that are acting on their own. We'll take any legal action possible in order to fight these kind of activities.
Meanwhile, back in Bogota, police have arrested 5 of the suspected assassins in the murder last Friday of presidential candidate Luis Galan, whose killing led to the current crackdown on the drug organizations here. The military continues to seize some of the vast holdings of the drug bosses, more than 100 airplanes, a huge fleet of cars and trucks, and still more lavish homes and estates. This one, in Medellin, appears to have been abandoned just as a formal luncheon was about to begin. Police found nobody home. But in a bedroom closet of the drug boss's wife, police found an escape hatch hidden under the floorboards, leading to an underground tunnel, but no trace of the drug boss who lived here. Brian Ross, NBC News, Bogota.
4 lower-ranking traffickers now under arrest are to be extradited to this country for trial within 2 weeks. And President Bush says his administration is discussing with Colombia right now the possibility of additional help in battling the drug barons. NBC's John Cochran is in Kennebunkport, Maine, where the president held a news conference.
The vacationing president defended Colombia's much-criticized president and said he will help President Barcos any way he can, short of sending American troops, a move which Bush feels would be unpopular throughout Latin America.
I know enough about this hemisphere, and I've had enough experience in dealing with countries in Latin America to know the constraints that should exist in terms of dispatching troops. So there would not be any unilateral action of this kind.
Drug violence in Colombia may trouble Bush, but he was pleased with events in Eastern Europe, especially now that Mikhail Gorbachev has told Poland's communists to cooperate with the incoming non-communist prime minister.
Change is dynamic. It'll be far-reaching. There will be bumps in the road as these countries move towards more democracy. There's no question about that. But I felt that the statement that I saw attributed to Mr. Gorbachev was very positive in this regard. Very.
The president pointed to the trend toward democracy in Eastern Europe as one reason why Americans have given Bush high marks in the polls.
We got enormous difficulties, but they sense the strength of the United States, and they see world events coming our way. And so maybe some of that is why things make it appear that I'm not doing too badly.
Bush also said many Americans like him because they like Barbara Bush. He invited reporters to check on his wife's tennis game. She joked that the president's invasion of her privacy might result in divorce. In a battle of one-liners, the president responded that her tennis game was deadly dull.
It's like watching grass grow out here.
Mrs. Bush was on the court only one day after medical treatment for double vision.
Can we inspect your eyeballs, please?
The Bushes are obviously relishing their first summer vacation as first family and their high ranking in the polls. But Bush admits that what goes up must also come down, and that for most Americans, the jury is still out on his young presidency. John Cochran, NBC News, with the president in Kennebunkport.
Still to come tonight on NBC Nightly News, Peter Kent reports on the flood of East German refugees escaping to freedom in the West. Don Oliver reports on the fight to keep trucks off Los Angeles streets during rush hours. And Stephen Frazier has the story of the first girl ever to play in a Little League World Series. Good glove, great bat. From communism to freedom, the great exodus from east to west continued today with at least 500 East Germans escaping in the last 24 hours alone. Their path to freedom, Hungary, then across the border to Austria. From there, most go on to West Germany. NBC's Peter Kent reports from the jumping-off point, Hungary.
This afternoon, a 25-year-old technical artist from East Berlin walked along Hungary's border with Austria, considering the toughest decision of her life. Monica says she needs time to convince herself she can run across this open stretch of the border without getting shot. Hungarian border guards do occasionally fire warning shots in the air, as they did when 4 young East Germans ran for freedom last week. But most refugees cross safely, often with soldiers' encouragement. Monica is one of the 1 million or so East Germans who were able to obtain a tourist visa to Hungary this summer. But they didn't come just for fun. They came because it's freer here. They can talk openly about reform and the lack of reform in East Germany.
I don't believe that it comes in our land.
No.
I don't believe it.
Which is why this summer thousands of East Germans decided they weren't going home. Most refugees, like this family, just head for the tent city in Budapest, set up by a Catholic relief group at a local church. The Germans don't stay long, just long enough for a rest and briefings from helpful Hungarians. Then they're taken to the border.
I think there are very few countries which would have reacted in such a generous way, the way the Hungarian government has done. And I think there is a limit to how far a country can ignore its own laws. You know, Hungary does have a border, and it just can't all the time look the other way.
While the exodus has embarrassed and enraged East Germany, Hungary has no intention of re-erecting the Iron Curtain to please its Warsaw Pact partner.
Hungary started on a new path of civil and human values. Protecting our borders with barbed wire doesn't mix with those values.
As each group makes it over the border to Austria, and groups in the hundreds are now routine, the refugees are given temporary food and accommodation, then transported to West Germany to claim the citizenship all Germans of that divided country are entitled to. Monica has dreams of a better life in the West. Later tonight or tomorrow, she will probably, like the thousands before her this summer, go for it. Peter Kent, NBC News, Budapest.
The form of a chain reaction. In the Soviet republics of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, as many as 2 million people linked hands in a chain that stretched 360 miles through those republics. They demanded a return to independence from the Soviet Union, lost as a result of a secret Nazi-Soviet pact 50 years ago today. In Moscow, a sympathy demonstration was met by a major show of force. Special riot police were brought out to crack down on the protesters. 75 people were reported detained. An Algerian expelled from France today hijacked an Air France jet with 115 people on board on a flight from Paris to Algiers. The hijacker had demanded an international conference on Lebanon and threatened to blow up the plane. The hijacking ended when the plane landed. All on board were freed. The hijacker was arrested. His bomb turned out to be a bar of soap and a can of shaving cream. In South Africa, a series of non-violent demonstrations against apartheid turned violent today. In one incident, police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at students on a university campus. In another, tear gas was used against Archbishop Desmond Tutu and a group of school children. And in this country, at Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington, the return of 9 Americans hailed as fallen heroes of peace. Texas Congressman Mickey Leland and his delegation were killed in a plane crash in Ethiopia 16 days ago. They were on a hunger mission. Should a teenage girl be required to get the consent of her parents before having an abortion? That's an issue taking center stage now in the courts and in state legislatures from coast to coast. NBC's Lisa Myers reports that for partisans on both sides, it evokes strong emotions.
More than 1/4 of all abortions in this country are performed on teenagers. Wendy Camello had an abortion last year. Because she was 16, Missouri law required that she get her father's permission.
You know, I more than likely probably would have told him just for the support of having a parent behind me saying it's okay, you know, we all make mistakes, you know, it'll be okay.
Let me hand out your consent forms here.
Most of the more than 400,000 teenagers who have abortions each year are not required to involve their parents. Even though 26 states have parental consent or notification laws, only half actually enforce them. The others have been declared or are believed to be unconstitutional. But that may all change soon. This fall, the Supreme Court takes up 2 cases, requiring that one or both parents be notified before a teenager can have an abortion. And anti-abortion groups have put parental consent laws at the top of their legislative agenda.
If schools are required to obtain parental consent when giving aspirin to children, then certainly parents should be involved in potentially life-changing decisions that affect their minor daughter.
Surveys show that most teenagers voluntarily tell their parents. Those who don't often have good reason not to. Dr. Arthur Horowitz predicts dire consequences if a parental notification law is put back into effect in Minnesota.
And we'll see kids beaten up again by their parents, specifically for this purpose because they got pregnant, and we'll see kids thrown out of their homes and thrown onto the street.
Teenagers who are afraid to tell their parents do have the option of going before a judge to get permission for an abortion. But those who've been that route call it humiliating.
I was shaking and my palms were sweating, and they were just looking at you just like with this look of, you are just a terrible person, you're a terrible girl, you know, and making you feel I was very intimidated by the whole situation.
Still, polls show that a strong majority of Americans agree with Kay Marshall.
I just feel it's a right and it's an obligation of a parent to know what is being done to or for or whatever their children.
The one thing on which both sides agree is that parental consent and notification laws reduce the number of teenage abortions. And because politicians find it tough to vote against these laws, they're the most politically viable way for anti-abortion groups to whittle away at abortion rights. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
Federal inspectors have descended on a Niagara Mohawk nuclear plant in upstate New York to see whether there's been any radiation leak from a building used to store contaminated water that may have spilled there 11 years ago. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission says none of its current inspectors knew there'd been a spill inside the building in 1978. Los Angeles has a plan to ban most trucks from city streets during rush hours. The idea is to cut down on traffic jams and the pollution they cause. The plan has run into strong resistance, and not only from the trucking industry. NBC's Don Oliver has the story.
In California, 50% of all traffic delaying accidents involve trucks. During morning and evening rush hours in Los Angeles, traffic on city streets is often snarled around slow-moving trucks, those loading and unloading.
I can't get through.
Why?
Because of the trucks.
Mayor Tom Bradley's plan would require most truckers to have permits to be on city streets from 6 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 7 p.m. 70% of the big rigs would be banned during those hours.
Nobody likes the idea of having to do this kind of thing, but we'd rather do it now than wait for a crisis.
The plan is meeting with stiff opposition from the movie industry, which says it will interfere with shooting schedules on location, from businesses which want rush hour deliveries, and from the trucking industry, which believes it will cause companies to move out of Los Angeles.
When you physically ban, you are now banning commercial activity. And when you ban commercial activities, you impact jobs and you impact the investment in the community.
The opposition has gone to the state legislature to preempt Los Angeles from regulating trucks. Mayor Bradley took the unusual step today of appearing before a legislative committee to argue his case.
This is a fight to reduce traffic congestion and air pollution. Certainly no community in the United States is more directly affected on these two issues than is Los Angeles.
Bradley argues that many deliveries can be made at night when automobile traffic is light. This is the area around the Los Angeles produce market. The same scene during morning rush hour traffic. But trucker Dan Rivas doesn't believe banning trucks will significantly affect traffic congestion, just increase costs.
If trucking companies have to put additional shifts and alter their present hours, somehow down the road the consumer's going to end up paying more for their product.
The truck ban battle is being watched carefully in other cities to see if Mayor Bradley can defeat the trucking lobby and prove that his plan will reduce traffic congestion. Don Oliver, NBC News, Los Angeles.
In tonight's commentary, John Chancellor has some thoughts about a plan to cut the cost of Social Security. John?
Mary Alice. Some of us of a certain age were mightily pleased last night when Nolan Ryan became the first pitcher ever to strike out 5,000 batters. Pleased for him, and maybe more pleased because he's 42 years of age. Don't count out the older generations. Why do people have to retire at 65? This whole business of retiring at a fixed age was started as a scam. 100 years ago in Germany, Otto von Bismarck established the first retirement pensions. Workers then lived only about 45 years. Bismarck set the retirement age at 70, which meant that nearly everybody would be dead before their pensions came due. An early example of the big type giveth and the small type taketh away. It was later dropped to 65, and that's the standard today. And it doesn't make much sense. The average 65-year-old American man is going to live about another 20 years. Women live longer. Some experts say the retirement age should be 72 or 73. Most people are still vigorous in their 60s. George Bush runs, plays tennis, and holds down a demanding job. He's 65. That's not old in 1989. I'm going to get it in the neck for saying this, but if the retirement age were raised, the country would have a larger and more experienced workforce. Social Security would cost less. It's now running at $600 million a day, 1/5 of the federal budget and growing. We need the workers, we need to save the money, and the way to do it is to raise the retirement age, which is commentary for this evening. Mary Alice?
Thank you, John. In Japan today, the world's two largest makers of musical instruments, Yamaha and Kawai, announced they will start making piano keys out of plastic, not ivory. They say the change is in response to public pressure to protect elephants. Captain Al Haynes was hailed as a hero last month when he crash-landed his crippled airliner in Sioux City, saving 184 lives. Today, he was honored again for a different reason. Haynes was one of 4 men recognized for outstanding volunteer work with the Little League. He says he became a Little League umpire when his son started playing ball in 1970, and he's been doing it ever since. At the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, a team from California did something today that's never been done before. It fielded in a World Series game a girl. What's more, it put her high up in the batting order. NBC's Stephen Frazier tells why.
Victoria Brucker is her team's power hitter. 5'3", 137 pounds. 9 home runs in postseason play.
I wait for my pitch to come and I just swing.
Victoria's teammates, all stars from San Pedro, California, have always respected her abilities. No sexism here.
During the season, I couldn't say to anybody else she was better than me, but now I can because she is.
Opponents learned the hard way.
Mission Hills Laguna, they're teasing her. Like they're saying she's a girl, she can't pitch, she's no good. And we proved them wrong. We won 9-0.
But now Victoria's abilities are widely known. She is the first American girl to lead her team into the Little League World Series. Today she played first base as San Pedro in the blue jerseys played Tampa, Florida. Her stepfather led the cheers and her mother reminisced.
I used to worry about her because she wouldn't go out and do a lot of the other things that I thought, you know, is typical for the American girl, but this is all American.
Young women in baseball are an all-American tradition. Thousands have played Little League since it opened to girls in 1974. Relaxing with her team at poolside, Victoria thinks of herself as one of the team, and the only special treatment she gets is at bedtime, when she has to leave the bull session in the bunkhouse to sleep in a motel. In interviews, she sounds less like a girl than like a young athlete.
I think we could do it if we keep our defense and offense working. Don't put down our attitudes or anything.
Back in San Pedro, her grandmother, from a generation that might consider baseball unladylike, was rooting for her.
Oh, I think it's great. See, I feel like crying every time I think about it.
And the all-boy team from Tampa was no match for number 20 and her teammates. Victoria Brucker scored 3 runs as San Pedro won 12-5. Stephen Frazier, NBC News.
That's Nightly News for this Wednesday night. I'll see you again later on Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. That's tonight at 10, 9 Central Time. I'm Mary Alice Williams for all the men and women of NBC. Good night.
I'm Sarah Edwards. Our scientific advance is turning parenting into a property battle. See how the process of freezing embryos is stirring up controversy on Evening Magazine, coming up next.